Make it clean. No traces back to either of us. The voice on the other end murmured agreement, discussing timelines and methods with the casual efficiency of someone ordering office supplies. My husband Daniel's tone carried no emotion, no hesitation, just cold calculation about ending my life. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I carefully placed the phone back in its cradle, timing it perfectly with his hang-up. My heart hammered against my ribs as I sat on the edge of the bed, processing what I'd just heard. 22 years of marriage, and my husband was planning my murder. The house felt different now. The familiar creak of floorboards overhead as Daniel moved around our bedroom suddenly sounded ominous. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway marked time I might not have. Even the family photos lining the walls seemed to mock me with their frozen smiles and false promises of happiness. I forced myself to breathe normally, to think clearly. Panic would get me killed faster than any accident Daniel was orchestrating. I needed to be smart, careful, and above all, I needed to act like nothing had changed. My name is Eleanor Blackwood, and until 5 minutes ago, I thought I had a good marriage. Not perfect, what marriage is, but solid. Daniel and I had built Blackwood Financial together, turning his modest inheritance and my strategic mind into an investment firm worth over $50 million. We had no children by choice, preferring to focus on the business. Or at least, that's what I'd believed. I stood up slowly, smoothing my silk pajamas with steady hands. The mirror across from the bed reflected a woman who looked remarkably composed for someone who'd just discovered her death warrant. At 45, I kept myself in good shape. Morning yoga, careful diet, regular spa treatments. Daniel always said he loved how I took care of myself. Now I wondered if he'd simply been maintaining his investment until the right moment to cash out. The floorboard outside the guest room creaked. I froze, calculating the distance to the door, the window, any escape route. But Daniel's footsteps continued past, heading downstairs. I heard the familiar sounds of him making his evening scotch, ice clinking, bottle opening, the soft splash of Macallan 25. I needed to think, to plan. But first, I needed to know why. Moving silently, I made my way to the master bedroom. Everything appeared normal. Daniel's reading glasses on the nightstand, his Harvard law diploma on the wall, the Monet reproduction I'd bought him for our 20th anniversary. But I wasn't looking for normal anymore. His laptop sat closed on the desk by the window. Password protected, of course, but I knew Daniel's habits. He was brilliant with finances, but lazy with security. The password would be something predictable. Our anniversary, his birthday, maybe the date we closed our first $1 million deal. I heard him coming back upstairs and quickly returned to the guest room, slipping under the covers just as his shadow passed beneath the door. He paused, 1 second, 2, then continued to our bedroom. The door closed with a soft click. I lay there in the dark, mind racing. The man I'd shared my life with was planning to kill me, and I had no idea why. Money was the obvious answer, but we'd signed prenups. The business had clear partnership agreements. Unless a cold realization washed over me. Last month, Daniel had suggested updating our insurance policies. "We're not getting younger, Ellie," he'd said with that easy smile. "We should be prepared." I'd signed the papers without really reading them, trusting him as I always had. How much was I worth? Dead? The illuminated clock read 11:47 p.m. In the morning, I'd need to perform the role of the unsuspecting wife while gathering information and planning my survival. But there was one thing I could do tonight. I reached for my phone, opening the recording app I used for business meetings. If Daniel made any more late-night calls, I'd have evidence. Then I navigated to our security system app. We had cameras throughout the property, Daniel's idea after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. He didn't know I'd had Martin, our security specialist, create a backup cloud storage that only I could access. Daniel might be planning the perfect accident, but he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'd been the one handling the defensive strategies for our business for over 2 decades. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. A text message popped up on my screen. Daniel. Sorry about the late call, sweetheart. Business emergency. Tokyo markets. See you at breakfast? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed to confront him. To rage, to run. Instead, I typed, "No problem, darling. Sleep well," because that's what the unsuspecting wife would say. I set the phone aside and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this house, my husband of 22 years was probably sleeping peacefully, dreaming of life insurance payouts and freedom from a marriage he no longer wanted. But he'd made a critical error. He'd given me warning. The next morning arrived too quickly. I'd barely slept, my mind churning through possibilities, plans, and the devastating reality that my life was in immediate danger. But as dawn light filtered through the curtains, I forced myself into character. Eleanor Blackwood, loving wife, successful businesswoman, completely oblivious to her husband's murderous intentions. I heard Daniel's alarm at 6:30, same as always. The shower ran for exactly 12 minutes. He was nothing if not predictable. I waited until I heard him heading downstairs before emerging from the guest room, wrapping my robe around me with practiced casualness. "Morning, darling," I called, out, injecting warmth into my voice as I descended the stairs. How did the Tokyo situation resolve? Daniel stood at the kitchen island, already dressed in one of his Italian suits, scrolling through his phone while coffee brewed. He looked up with a smile that yesterday I would have found charming. Today, it made my skin crawl. "Manageable," he said, setting his phone aside to pour 2 cups of coffee. "Lost some ground on the Nicky, but we'll recover. You sleep okay? I noticed you were in the guest room." A test? Or genuine observation? I accepted the coffee mug, letting my fingers brush his. "You were tossing and turning when you came to bed. Didn't want to disturb you more." I sipped the coffee, wondering for a split second if he'd already started his plan. But no. Too traceable. Daniel was smarter than that. "Always so considerate," he murmured, leaning in to kiss my forehead. The gesture, once comforting, now felt like a threat assessment. How easy would it be for him to snap my neck right here? Make it look like I'd fallen down the stairs? "What's your schedule today?" I asked, moving to the refrigerator for yogurt. "Normal morning routine, normal conversation, board meeting at 10, lunch with the Henderson group, then golf with Richard Carver at 3. He paused, studying me with those green eyes I'd once found so trustworthy. "What about you?" I'd planned to work from home, reviewing portfolios. Now that seemed dangerously isolated. "Actually, I think I'll go into the office. Jennifer wanted to review the Morrison account, and I've been putting her off." Something flickered across his face. Annoyance? Disappointment? "I thought we agreed. You'd take it easier this quarter. You've been pushing yourself. Concern for my well-being? Or frustration that I wouldn't be following whatever schedule he'd mapped out for my demise?" "You're right," I conceded, playing the dutiful wife. "Maybe I'll just do the meeting and come home. Perhaps a spa afternoon." "Perfect." His smile returned, genuine pleasure at my apparent compliance. "In fact, why don't I book you something special? That place you love in Westchester? An hour's drive away, isolated roads. So many opportunities for accidents." "That's sweet, but I already have an appointment at Serenity downtown. Facial at 2. Another flicker of something, quickly suppressed. He was good at the mask, but I'd spent 2 decades learning his tells. The slight tightening around his eyes meant frustration. The way his thumb rubbed against his coffee mug meant he was recalculating. "Well, enjoy yourself," he said finally, checking his Rolex. "I should go. Early meeting to prep for the board." I walked him to the door, accepted his goodbye kiss, and watched him drive away in his Tesla. Only when his car disappeared around the corner did I allow myself to breathe fully. I had maybe 8 hours before he returned. 8 hours to figure out why my husband wanted me dead and how to prevent it. First stop, his home office. Unlike his laptop, Daniel's office wasn't password protected. He'd always trusted me completely in our home, never imagining I'd have reason to snoop. The room smelled like his cologne and leather, filled with the trophies of our success: deal tombstones, photos with CEOs, framed magazine covers featuring Blackwood Financial. I started with his desk, careful to photograph everything first so I could return items exactly as I'd found them. Bank statements showed normal transactions. Calendar entries revealed nothing unusual. But in the bottom drawer, beneath old tax returns, I found something that made my blood run cold. A brochure for exclusive properties in Costa Rica. Tucked inside, handwritten notes about extradition laws and banking privacy. And a photo I'd never seen before. Daniel at what looked like a beach bar, his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. Young, blonde, laughing at something he'd said. The timestamp on the back was from 6 months ago, during what he'd told me was a solo golf trip to examine investment properties. I photographed everything, my hands steady despite the rage building. Inside me, an affair was cliché, almost insulting in its banality. But it explained the insurance policies, the sudden interest in my taking more time off, the late-night phone calls that were definitely not about Tokyo markets. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. "Forgot to mention. Dinner with the Walkers tonight, 7 p.m. at Chez Laurent." The Walkers, Susan and Paul, old friends who'd known us since the beginning. Witnesses to our happy marriage. Character references for the grieving widower. I typed back, "Looking forward to it." Then I noticed something else in the photo. The woman's necklace, a distinctive piece I recognized. I'd seen it before, at company events. My mind raced through employee files until it clicked. Madison Hayes, junior analyst in our emerging markets division. 28 years old, MBA from Wharton, hired 18 months ago by Daniel personally, despite my objections that she lacked experience. I set the photo down carefully, my mind shifting from emotional devastation to cold analysis. This wasn't just an affair. This was a carefully orchestrated replacement. Madison wasn't just warming his bed, she was being groomed to take my place in the business too. How much had he already taught her? How much of our proprietary strategies had he shared? A plan began forming in my mind. But first, I needed more information. I replaced everything exactly as I'd found it and moved to my own office down the hall. My laptop was military-grade encrypted, a precaution I'd insisted on after a competitor tried to hack our systems 3 years ago. I pulled up our corporate structure, diving deep into recent transactions and account modifications. There it was. Subtle, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Over the past 8 months, Daniel had been slowly restructuring our holdings. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger suspicion, just careful positioning that would, in the event of my death, give him sole control over accounts worth approximately $30 million. The other $20 million would remain in trust, but with him as the sole trustee, he'd been planning this for at least 8 months. Every kiss, every "I love you," every anniversary dinner had been a performance while he methodically prepared for my murder. I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to think strategically rather than emotionally. Daniel thought he had the perfect plan. Natural accident, grieving widower, young replacement waiting discreetly in the wings. He'd probably wait a year before making things public with Madison, Long enough to seem respectful, short enough to enjoy his new life while still in his prime. But he'd made crucial mistakes. He'd underestimated me, seeing only the supportive wife instead of the strategic mind that had built half our empire. He'd gotten sloppy with the photo, and most importantly, he'd given me warning. My phone rang. Jennifer from the office. Eleanor? I wasn't expecting you today. Are you coming? In? I made a split-second decision. Actually, yes. Can you have Martin from security meet me there? I need to update some protocols. Of course. Everything all right? Just being cautious, I said, already planning my next moves. And Jennifer? Can you pull the personnel file for Madison Hayes? I'm thinking about restructuring the emerging markets team. The blonde analyst? Sure, though between you and me, I never understood what Daniel saw in her professionally. She's been making quite a few mistakes lately. Interesting. Has she now? Pull together a performance review. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up and began, preparing for war. My husband thought he was hunting an unsuspecting prey. He was about to learn he'd cornered a predator. The drive to the office gave me time to solidify my strategy. I couldn't simply confront Daniel. He'd already proven capable of planning murder. I couldn't run. That would trigger whatever backup plan he'd prepared. And I couldn't trust the police without concrete evidence of an actual crime. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed to turn his own plan against him. As I pulled into the parking garage, my phone buzzed with another text. This time from an unknown number. Looking forward to finally meeting you properly. M. Madison. Daniel must have given her my number, probably as part of preparing her to console the grieving widower. The arrogance of it filled me with cold fury. They were so confident in their plan that she was already making moves to establish familiarity. Screenshotted the text and replied, I think you have the wrong number. Her response came quickly. So sorry. Meant for a friend. Amateur. She'd just created a digital trail linking us before my supposed accident. I smiled grimly as I walked into the building. If Daniel had taught her anything about our business, he'd clearly skipped the lessons about operational security. Martin was waiting in my office, his expression professionally neutral. A former Navy SEAL, he'd been with us for 5 years and had always reported directly to me, not Daniel. Mrs. Blackwood, you wanted to discuss security protocols? I closed the door behind us and activated the white noise generator we used for sensitive negotiations. Martin, I need you to listen very carefully and trust that what I'm about to tell you is absolutely serious. His posture shifted subtly, recognizing the gravity in my tone. Of course. I have reason to believe there's a credible threat against my life. I need enhanced security measures, but they need to be invisible. Can you do that? He didn't ask questions, didn't express skepticism. That's why I'd hired him. Threat assessment? Sophisticated, patient, with inside knowledge of my routines. His eyes sharpened. Timeline? Unknown, but likely soon. The threat. Mentioned making it look like an accident. I'll need to review your schedule, vary your routes, check your vehicles. I'd recommend a discreet security detail. Do it. But Martin, this stays between us. Use contractors if you need to, people from outside our usual network. Understood. I'll have preliminary measures in place by end of day. After he left, Jennifer knocked and entered with Madison's file. She's actually in the office today if you want to meet with her? Perfect. Send her up in 20 minutes. And Jennifer? Sit in on the meeting. I want a witness. As I reviewed Madison's file, the scope of Daniel's betrayal became clearer. She'd been given signing authority on several accounts she had no business accessing. Her salary was 30% above market rate. And her performance reviews, all signed by Daniel, glowed with praise that didn't match the actual work product in her file. She knocked exactly 20 minutes later, entering with the confidence of someone who believed she'd already won. "Mrs. Blackwood, I'm so honored you wanted to meet with me." She was prettier in person than in the photo, with the kind of aggressive polish that suggested ambition over ability. Her handshake was firm, her smile practiced. But her eyes kept darting around my office, probably comparing it to whatever Daniel had promised her. "Sit," I said, not returning the smile. "Jennifer will be joining us to take notes." A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. This wasn't the friendly introduction she'd expected from her lover's soon-to-be deceased wife. "I've been reviewing your performance," I continued, spreading her files across my desk. "Your work on the Hashimoto account last month cost us nearly $500,000 in missed opportunities." Mr. Blackwood said, "Mr. Blackwood isn't here," I cut her off. "And when it comes to performance reviews, I have final say. The Steinberg portfolio shows similar issues. Basic calculation errors that should have been caught in your first year of B school." Her confident facade cracked slightly. "I think there's been some misunderstanding. Daniel, Mr. Blackwood has been mentoring me." "Has he?" I leaned back, studying her. "Tell me, Miss Hayes, what do you think the penalty is for insider trading?" The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a simple question. You have signing authority on several restricted accounts. You've made trades that coincidentally align with information that wasn't public when you executed them. Either you're psychic, lucky, or someone's been feeding you information." Jennifer shifted beside me, her pen flying across her notepad. Madison's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her portfolio. "I've always followed proper protocols," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Have you? Because I have transaction records that suggest otherwise. Small trades, nothing too obvious, but there's a pattern. The kind of pattern the SEC loves to investigate." This was a gamble. I'd only had an hour to review her trades, but I'd seen enough to know she was sloppy. Whether Daniel had encouraged the insider trading or she'd done it on her own initiative didn't matter. What mattered was establishing leverage. "I want a lawyer," she said quietly. "You're not under arrest, Miss Hayes. This is a performance review. Though if you'd prefer to make it a legal matter, I'm happy to involve our compliance department, and the FBI, and the Wall Street Journal, who I believe would find the story of a young analyst's miraculous trading success quite interesting." She looked like she might vomit. "What do you want?" I smiled for the first time since she'd entered. "Your resignation, effective immediately. You'll forfeit all unvested options and sign a comprehensive NDA. In return, I won't pursue legal action for the numerous violations I've documented. Daniel." "Won't let you do this." The admission hung in the air. Jennifer's pen stopped moving. Madison realized her mistake immediately, her face flushing. "I wasn't aware my husband had override authority on my HR decisions," I said calmly. "Though it's interesting you think he'd intervene in a routine termination for cause. Jennifer, please call security to escort Miss Hayes out." Madison stood, her legs shaky. "You don't understand. He loves me. We're going to—" "Going to what?" I asked softly, dangerously. "Please, finish that sentence. Jennifer's taking excellent notes." She pressed her lips together, finally showing a hint of intelligence. As security arrived to escort her out, she turned back one last time. "He's not who you think he is." "Neither am I," I replied. After she left, Jennifer closed her notepad. "Eleanor, what's really going on?" I trusted Jennifer, but not enough to endanger her. "Corporate espionage, possibly. Keep this confidential, but be careful around Daniel for the next few weeks. And back up everything. Emails, files, recordings. Store them somewhere secure, off-site." She nodded slowly. "Anything else?" "Yes, draft a memo restructuring signing authorities. Nobody gets access to restricted accounts without dual approval from both Daniel and me. And schedule a partners meeting for Monday. Full board attendance required." As Jennifer left, I felt the first real spark of hope. Madison was neutralized and scared. Martin was implementing security measures. I'd started building a paper trail that would make any accident highly suspicious. But I knew Daniel wouldn't give up easily. He'd spent 8 months planning my death. Madison's sudden termination would rattle him, force him to accelerate his timeline or adjust his plan. I needed to be ready for either possibility. My phone rang. Daniel. Ellie? I just got a call from Madison Hayes. She's hysterical. Saying you fired her? I injected confusion into my voice. Madison? The blonde analyst? I did terminate her, yes. Poor performance and some very concerning trading patterns. Why is she calling you directly? A pause. I could practically hear him recalculating. She mentioned I'd been mentoring her. Thought I could intervene. Oh, Daniel. You always want to see the best in people, but she's been making serious errors and there's evidence of possible insider trading. I had to act quickly to protect the firm. Insider trading? His voice sharpened. What kind of evidence? Patterns in her personal account that mirror our proprietary moves. Small amounts, but consistent. Either she's brilliant or someone's been feeding her information. I've documented everything for the lawyers. Another pause, longer this time. You should have consulted me first. You were in board meetings. Besides, since when do I need permission to fire a junior analyst? Unless... I let the implication hang. Unless what? Dangerous territory now. I could hear the edge in his voice. Nothing. It's just that she seemed very confident you'd protect her. Made some odd comments about your relationship. You haven't been inappropriate with her, have you? The last thing we need is a harassment lawsuit. Of course not. The denial came too quick, too sharp. She's delusional if she implied anything. Good. Then you won't mind if legal does a thorough investigation. Martin's already pulling her access logs and communications. Standard procedure for insider trading allegations. That seems excessive. Does it? Daniel, she had signing authority on restricted accounts. Accounts you personally gave her access to, according to the logs. If she's dirty, we need to know how deep this goes. I could hear him breathing, probably running through options in his mind. How much had he taught Madison? What trails had they left? How much could he clean up before Martin's investigation uncovered it? You're right, he said finally, his voice artificially calm. Better to be thorough. I'll be home early. We can discuss it before dinner with the Walkers. Of course, darling. I'll see you tonight. I hung up and immediately texted Martin. Timeline accelerated. Assume immediate threat. Implement all protocols. His response was instant. Copy. Team en route. The chess game had begun, and I'd just taken his queen. But Daniel still had pieces on the board, and wounded predators were the most dangerous. Spent the rest of the afternoon in the office, ostensibly working but actually building my defenses. Every document related to our personal and professional finances was copied to secure cloud storage. Every email between Daniel and Madison was archived. Every suspicious transaction was flagged and documented. At 3:47, Jennifer knocked. Your spa appointment. I'd forgotten the alibi I'd given Daniel. Cancel it. I'm too busy here. Actually, she said, stepping inside and closing the door. Martin suggested you keep the appointment. He said you'd understand why. A security measure. Maintain normal patterns while they implemented protection. Of course. Thank you, Jennifer. The spa was a regular haunt, a place where I'd been going for years. But as I walked through the familiar doors, nothing felt safe anymore. Every stranger could be a threat. Every accident waiting to happen. Mrs. Blackwood. Teresa, my usual esthetician, greeted me warmly. Your regular room is ready. But as she led me back, she whispered, Your friend from the gym is already here. Said you were expecting her? I didn't have a friend from the gym. But I nodded, understanding. Martin had placed someone inside. In the treatment room, a woman I'd never seen before was waiting. Compact, alert, with the kind of quiet confidence that suggested military training. "Mrs. Blackwood, I'm Sarah. I'll be your shadow for the foreseeable future." "How does this work?" "You go about your normal routine. I'll be nearby, but invisible. There are 2 others outside, one in the parking structure. We've swept your vehicles and your home. Both were clean, but we'll continue monitoring. My husband is currently at the country club with Richard Carver. We have eyes on him. Any change in his pattern, you'll know immediately." For the first time since hearing those devastating words on the phone, I felt like I might actually survive this. The facial proceeded normally, though I couldn't relax. Every footstep outside the door made me tense. Every new voice sparked fear. But Sarah remained calm, professional, invisible when Teresa returned, but always present. As I prepared to leave, Sarah murmured, "Take your time getting home. Stop for coffee, browse a shop. Give us time to position for the dinner tonight." I followed her advice, stopping at my favorite bookstore, buying a coffee I didn't want, playing the part of a woman without a care beyond choosing between hardcover and paperback, all the while knowing that somewhere, my husband was fine-tuning his plan to kill me. I arrived home at 5:45 to find Daniel already there, standing in the kitchen with a glass of wine. He'd changed from his suit into casual elegance, the Daniel I'd fallen in love with 22 years ago, the Daniel I'd built a life and fortune with, the Daniel who wanted me dead. "There you are," he said, smiling. "Good day at the spa?" "Lovely," I lied, accepting the wine glass he offered. I pretended to sip, letting the liquid barely touch my lips. "You're home early." "Wanted time to talk before dinner." He moved closer, and I fought the urge to step back. "About Madison Hayes." "What about her?" "I think you were right to let her go." He touched my arm gently. "I looked into those trades you mentioned. Definitely suspicious. I should have supervised her more closely. The reversal was too quick, too complete. Daniel never admitted mistakes this easily. It's done now. Legal will handle any follow-up. Actually, I think we should handle it more quietly. No need to involve authorities if we can avoid it. Bad for the firm's reputation." There it was. He needed to contain the damage, limit the investigation that might uncover his connection to Madison. "Maybe you're right. We can discuss it Monday at the partners' meeting." His hand tightened slightly on my arm. "Partners' meeting? Didn't Jennifer call you?" "I scheduled it for Monday morning. Full board. We need to review some structural changes after the Madison situation." "What kind of changes?" His voice remained calm, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. "Security protocols mostly. Dual signatures for major transactions. Enhanced. Background checks. That sort of thing. Nothing that should affect operations. Just protection against future bad actors." He released my arm, turning back to the wine. "Seems like overkill for one rogue analyst." "Maybe, but better safe than sorry, don't you think?" The look he gave me then was measuring, assessing. For 22 years I'd been his partner, his known quantity. Now I was becoming unpredictable and he didn't like it. "You're right, of course," he said finally. "Why don't you get ready for dinner? I'll clean up here." I left him in the kitchen, hyper-aware of his eyes on my back as I climbed the stairs. In our bedroom, I chose my outfit carefully. Elegant, but not flashy. Nothing that would make an accident. Victim more memorable. As I dressed, I noticed small things. The photo of us in Santorini had been moved slightly. My jewelry box was at a different angle. The closet door wasn't fully closed. He'd been searching. Looking for what? Evidence of my suspicions? Or ensuring I hadn't hidden anything that might complicate his plan? I fixed my lipstick, studying my reflection. In 12 hours, everything had changed. This morning, I'd been a wife discovering betrayal. Tonight, I was a target preparing for battle. The woman in the mirror looked calm, composed, ready for dinner, with friends. But behind the facade, I was cataloging every exit, every potential weapon, every possible scenario. Daniel thought he was taking an unsuspecting victim to dinner. He had no idea he was dining with someone who'd already died once today, and had been reborn as something far more dangerous. A survivor. "Ready, darling?" Daniel called from downstairs. Took one last look in the mirror, straightened my shoulders, and prepared to play the most important role of my life. "Coming, sweetheart," I called back, my voice perfectly normal, perfectly trusting. The real show was about to begin. The drive to Chez Laurent took 17 minutes through evening traffic. Daniel drove his Mercedes while I sat beside him, maintaining the illusion of marital comfort. In the backseat of a car 3 vehicles behind us, Sarah and her team followed at a discreet distance. Every red light felt like an opportunity. Every intersection a potential ambush point. But we arrived without incident, the valet taking our keys with practiced efficiency. "The walkers are already here," Daniel noted, spotting Paul's Bentley. His hand found the small of my back, guiding me inside. The touch that once comforted now felt like a target being marked. Susan Walker rose from their corner table as we approached, her smile bright with genuine warmth. "Ellie, you look wonderful. That color is perfect on you." I embraced her, drawing comfort from her authentic affection. Susan and Paul had known us since our early days, when Blackwood Financial was just an ambitious idea and a rented office space. They'd celebrated our victories, supported us through challenges. Now they were unknowing participants in whatever scene Daniel had scripted for tonight. "Paul's been boring me with his sailing stories again," Susan complained as we settled into our seats. "I swear, if I hear one more word about wind patterns and optimal tacking angles—" "You love my sailing stories," Paul protested, his weathered face creasing with familiar laugh lines. "Remember Nantucket last summer? You couldn't stop talking about how peaceful it was." "The gin and tonics were peaceful," Susan corrected. "The sailing was terrifying." We fell into the comfortable rhythm of old friends, ordering wine and appetizers, trading stories and gentle barbs. To anyone watching, we were simply 2 successful couples enjoying a Thursday evening dinner. But I noticed things the others missed. How Daniel kept refilling my wine glass, how he insisted on ordering for me. "The salmon is exceptional here, darling." How his phone buzzed repeatedly with messages he didn't check. "So," Paul said as our entrees arrived, "Daniel tells me you're restructuring some positions at the firm. Tough decision about the Hayes girl." I felt Daniel's attention sharpen even as he maintained his casual posture. "Madison? Not really tough. At all. Clear performance issues and some concerning trading patterns. We couldn't ignore it." "Shame," Paul continued, cutting into his steak. "She seemed bright when I met her at your Christmas party. Daniel spoke highly of her potential." "Did he?" I turned to my husband with practiced curiosity. "You never mentioned meeting her at the party." Daniel's smile never wavered. "Briefly, she was eager to impress, asking about emerging market strategies. I may have been too encouraging." "You always see the best in people," Susan said, patting his hand. "It's one of your finest qualities." I watched my husband accept the compliment. With practiced humility, this man who'd spent 8 months planning my murder while sleeping beside me each night. "Sometimes too trusting," I agreed. "But that's why we balance each other so well. I handle the harsh realities." "Speaking of realities," Paul interjected, "what's this I hear about enhanced security protocols? My friend at Morrison Capital mentioned you're implementing some serious changes." "Interesting." Word was already spreading through our professional network. "Just being cautious. We've had some unusual activity lately, attempted intrusions into our systems, suspicious patterns in certain accounts. Better to be overprotective than sorry." "Intrusions?" Susan looked alarmed. "Electronic or—" "Both, possibly," I said, meeting Daniel's gaze directly. Martin thinks we may have been targeted for corporate espionage, someone with inside knowledge feeding information to competitors. Daniel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You didn't mention Martin's full assessment earlier, didn't I? Must have slipped my mind with everything happening today. He's recommending a complete security overhaul, digital and physical, including personal protection for senior partners. That seems excessive, Daniel said, his tone carefully modulated. Paul leaned forward, interested. Not really. Remember what happened to the Hendersons last year? That kidnapping attempt in Buenos Aires? These days, successful firms need to think about all kinds of threats. Exactly. I smiled gratefully at Paul. Martin showed me statistics on accidents involving financial executives. Surprisingly high numbers. Car crashes, falls, even food. Poisoning at an alarming rate, almost as if someone published a playbook on making murders look accidental. The table fell silent. Susan laughed nervously. Ellie, that's morbid dinner conversation. Is it? I speared a piece of salmon with deliberate precision. I find it fascinating. The planning required, the attention to detail. Though most perpetrators make crucial mistakes. Ego, usually. They get overconfident, leave digital trails, trust the wrong people. Daniel reached for his wine. His hand was perfectly steady, but I knew him well enough to see the micro-tensions in his shoulder, the slight delay before he spoke. You've been reading too many crime novels. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just becoming more aware of vulnerabilities. For instance, did you know that 70% of poisonings go undetected in standard autopsies unless specific toxins are suspected? Ellie, Susan protested, but Paul was nodding thoughtfully. She's right. We reviewed security protocols at the bank last quarter. The statistics are sobering. Most corporate murders are inside jobs, business partners, spouses, trusted employees, people who know routines and have access. I felt Daniel's thigh tense against mine under the table. Fortunately, I continued lightly, forewarned is forearmed. Once you know there's a threat, you can take precautions, change routines, implement safeguards, document everything. Document everything? Daniel's voice carried a slight edge. Oh yes. Martin insists on it. Every email, every phone call, every financial transaction. He's even having us do regular video check-ins when we're apart, creating time-stamped evidence of our whereabouts and well-being. Apparently, it's standard protocol for high-risk individuals. Susan shuddered. It sounds like living in a prison, better than the alternative, I said quietly. The waiter arrived to clear our plates, providing a natural break in the increasingly tense conversation. Daniel excused himself to the restroom, and I watched him go, noting how he pulled out his phone the moment he was out of sight. Is everything all right between you two? Susan asked softly. You seem different tonight. I manufactured a tired smile. Just stress from the Madison situation. Firing someone is never pleasant, especially when there might be legal ramifications. Pulsar signaled for more wine. Daniel seemed surprised by the security measures. He thinks I overreact sometimes, but with the amount of money we manage, we can't afford to be careless. Smart, Paul agreed. In fact, if Martin has capacity, I might hire him to review our protocols too. Perfect. The more people involved, the harder it would be for Daniel to execute any plan. I'll have him call you next week, Daniel returned, his expression carefully neutral. Dessert? Actually, I said, pressing a hand to my stomach. I'm not feeling well. That salmon isn't sitting right. Concern flickered across his face, genuine or performed. You barely touched it. I know, but I let discomfort show on my face. Would you mind if we cut the evening short? Susan immediately went into mother hen mode. Of course. Food poisoning is awful. Do you need anything? Just home and some rest. I stood carefully, letting Daniel steady me. His grip was firm, possessive. Protective husband or calculating killer? The goodbyes were quick, promises to reschedule soon. In the car, Daniel drove in silence for several minutes before speaking. "You didn't seem sick during dinner." It came on suddenly. "Maybe stress from today." "The Madison thing really bothered you." I closed my eyes, leaning against the window. "Finding out an employee might be trading on inside information?" "Yes, it bothered me. Especially since you vouched for her." I explained that. "I know." I kept my voice weak, non-confrontational. "I'm not blaming you, just tired and nauseous." His hand found mine across the console. "When we get home, I'll make you some tea. That usually helps." Tea, from his hands, after what I'd heard on that phone call. "Maybe just water. I think I'll go straight to bed." "The guest room again? If I'm sick, no point in both of us suffering," I felt rather than saw his smile. Always so considerate. At home, I went directly upstairs while Daniel lingered in the kitchen. Through the bedroom window, I caught a glimpse of movement. Sarah's team, invisible but present. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "House secure. No additions since you left." No additions. Meaning they'd found something that was already there. I changed into pajamas, genuinely feeling sick now from the stress of performing normalcy while knowing my husband was planning my death. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every creak of the house might signal danger. How long could I maintain this charade? A soft knock. "Ellie, I brought you some ginger tea anyway." Through the door, his voice sounded exactly as it had for 22 years. Caring, attentive, loving. I opened the door to find him holding a steaming mug, concern written across his features. "Thank you," I said, accepting it, but not drinking. "I think I just need to sleep." He studied me in the dim hallway light. "You've been different today, since this morning." "Have I?" The security protocols, the meeting with Madison, dinner conversation about poisonings and accidents. If I didn't know better, I'd think you were paranoid about something. I met his gaze directly, letting him see fragility instead of strength. "Maybe I am. We've built something amazing, Daniel. Sometimes I worry about losing it. About someone, trying to take it away." His expression softened. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married. Brilliant, ambitious, but with what I'd thought was genuine affection. "No one's taking anything away from us, Ellie. I promise." The lie slid so easily from his lips. I wondered how many others I'd believed over the years. "I know. I'm being silly. Just hold me for a moment." He set the tea aside and pulled me into his arms. I breathed in his familiar cologne, felt his heartbeat against my chest, memorized the feeling of what we'd once been. Somewhere in this embrace was the ghost of real love, before ambition and greed and Madison Hayes had poisoned everything. "Better?" he murmured against my hair. "Yes." I pulled back, manufacturing a weak smile. "Sorry for ruining dinner." "You didn't ruin anything. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be better." Tomorrow. When he'd have to recalibrate whatever plan my actions today had disrupted. When Madison would be gone and security protocols would be tightening around us both. When the chess match would continue with neither of us acknowledging we were playing. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night, darling." I closed the door and heard his footsteps retreat to our bedroom. Only then did I pour the tea down the bathroom sink, watching the amber liquid swirl away. Trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. A phone buzzed. "Martin. Sweep complete. 2 devices found. Study and master bedroom. Disabled without alerting. Meet tomorrow 7 a.m. Off-site location to follow. Listening devices. In our home." Daniel wasn't just planning an accident. He was gathering intelligence, possibly recording conversations to use later. Or were they Madison's idea? A way to learn our business secrets faster? I lay in the narrow guest bed, staring at the ceiling, processing the evening's revelations. Paul's comments about the Hayes girl at the Christmas party meant Daniel's affair had been going on longer than 6 months. Susan's observation about my changed behavior suggested I wasn't as good at pretending as I'd hoped. And Daniel's calm response to every escalation meant he was either supremely confident or had contingency plans I hadn't discovered yet. Sleep felt impossible, but I must have dozed because sudden movement woke me. The bedside clock read 3:17 a.m. I lay perfectly still, listening. There, a soft footfall in the hallway. Not Daniel's familiar tread. Someone lighter, more careful. My phone was on the nightstand. I reached for it slowly, thumb finding the emergency button Sarah had shown me. But before I could press it, my bedroom door opened silently. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway. Not Daniel. Too small. For one terrifying moment, I thought Madison had somehow gained entry. Then the figure spoke in a whisper. "Mrs. Blackwood? It's Sarah. We have a situation." I sat up, heart pounding. "What kind of situation?" "Your husband left the house 20 minutes ago, alone. He disabled the garage camera first, but we tracked his car heading downtown." "Where?" "Madison Hayes' apartment building." The pieces clicked into place. He was cleaning up loose ends, either securing her cooperation or ensuring her silence. "Do you have eyes on him?" "Team 2 is en route. But Mrs. Blackwood, there's something else. We found something during our sweep. Not just listening devices. Your husband has a go bag hidden in the pool house. Cash, fake passport, burner phones. And a vial of something we haven't identified yet. Poison. The natural accident he'd been planning. What do you recommend?" Sarah stepped further into the room, her professionalism steady despite the circumstances. "We could call the police with what we have, but attempted murder is harder to prove than accomplished murder," I finished. "And he could claim the go bag was for business emergencies, the passport for sensitive international deals." "Exactly. Unless what? Unless we let him think his plan is working while we document everything. Give him enough rope to hang himself, legally speaking." I thought about it. Playing the victim while actually being 10 steps ahead. Dangerous, but potentially the only way to ensure Daniel faced real consequences. "Do it. What do you need from me?" "Continue as normal tomorrow, but we'll be adding some additional measures. Everything he does, every contact he makes, every transaction. We'll have it all. When he makes his move, we'll be ready. And Madison? Already under surveillance. She won't be able to scratch her nose without us knowing." After Sarah left, I lay back down, but sleep was impossible. My husband was out there in the dark, meeting with his mistress, possibly planning the final details of my murder. The man I'd shared decades with, built an empire alongside, trusted with everything, now my potential executioner. But I had advantages he didn't know about. A security team that reported to me alone, financial safeguards he couldn't access, and most importantly, the element of surprise. Daniel thought he was hunting an unsuspecting victim. He was wrong. Dawn came slowly, painting the sky in shades of gray that matched my mood. I heard Daniel return around 5:30, his footsteps careful but not careful enough. The master bedroom door closed with a soft click. Soon he'd shower, dress, and pretend he'd never left. We'd have breakfast together, discuss our days, play the married couple we no longer were. But something had shifted in those pre-dawn hours. The game was accelerating. Whatever timeline Daniel had originally planned, Madison's firing had disrupted it. Her fear, her mistakes, her very existence as a weak link in his plan, all of it was forcing his hand. Good. Rushed plans meant sloppy execution, and sloppy execution meant evidence. I rose and prepared for another day of pretense, selecting my clothes with more care than usual. Professional but not severe, confident but not threatening. I needed to be exactly what Daniel expected, his successful but manageable wife, stressed about business concerns, unaware of the danger closing in. The bathroom mirror reflected a woman who'd aged years in 24 hours, but also one who'd found strength she didn't know she possessed. 22 years of marriage had taught me to read Daniel's moods, anticipate his strategies, understand his weaknesses. He thought that knowledge made me predictable. He was about to learn otherwise. Downstairs, I heard the coffee maker gurgling, to life. Daniel maintaining routines, playing his part. I took a deep breath, composed my features into worried weariness, and prepared to face my would-be killer across the breakfast table. "Good morning," I called out, descending the stairs. "Feeling better?" Daniel looked up from his Wall Street journal, concern creasing his features. "I was going to ask you the same thing. You were restless last night." Interesting. He'd been monitoring me even after leaving for Madison's. "Much better. Just needed rest. Thank you for the tea." "Of course." He poured me coffee, adding cream exactly how I liked it. Such a devoted husband. "I've been thinking about what you said at dinner, about the security measures. Here it comes." "Oh?" "You're right to be cautious. In fact, maybe we should consider that Westchester spa weekend after all. Get away from the stress for a few days. Clear our heads. Away from the city. From my security team. From witnesses." "That's sweet, but with the partners meeting Monday and the Madison investigation, all of that can wait." His hand covered mine across the marble island. "Your health is more important than any business concern. You've been pushing yourself. Too hard. Maybe you're right." I let exhaustion show. "But not this weekend. Too much to wrap up. Perhaps next week?" His thumb stroked my knuckles, and I fought not to pull away. "Next week, then. I'll make the arrangements. That place you love, with the private cottages. Isolated cottages. Natural setting for accidents, falls, allergic reactions, drownings. So many possibilities for a creative killer." "Perfect," I agreed, sipping my coffee. "Oh, I have an early meeting with Martin this morning. Security review before the office opens." "On a Friday?" Mild surprise, nothing more. He says it's easier to test protocols when the building's empty, something about vulnerability assessments. "Ah." He returned to his paper, apparently satisfied. "Will you be home for dinner?" "Planning on it. Unless you have other arrangements?" "No, nothing planned." The lie rolled off his tongue like honey. He'd probably be meeting with whoever he'd hired to orchestrate my accident, finalizing details now that Madison was compromised. "Good. I'll pick up something from that Italian place you like." "You're too good to me, Ellie." The irony might have made me laugh if it weren't so horrifically dark. Instead, I smiled and kissed his cheek, tasting betrayal on his skin. "I'll see you tonight." Martin's off-site location turned out to be a private security firm 40 minutes outside the city. The kind of place that didn't advertise and whose clients valued discretion above all else. Sarah met me at the entrance, leading me through biometric scanners to a secure conference room. "Your husband's been busy," Martin said without preamble, gesturing to multiple screens showing surveillance footage, phone records, and financial transactions. "Madison Hayes received $50,000 in cash at 4:47 this morning. Source: unknown. But Daniel withdrew exactly that amount from a private account last week. Hush money? Severance package, more likely. Along with what looked like very specific instructions. She booked a flight to Costa Rica for Sunday night." Costa Rica, where Daniel had been researching property and banking laws. "She's running?" "Or being sent away until things cool down. But here's the interesting part." Martin pulled up airport security footage. "This man met with your husband for 12 minutes in the parking garage after he left Madison's building. Studied the grainy image. Mid-40s, nondescript, the kind of face that would blend into any crowd. Who is he?" "Vincent Marsh, professional problem solver. Usually works corporate espionage, but he's been linked to 3 suspicious deaths in the last 5 years. All ruled accidents. My blood chilled. Daniel hired a professional killer? Looks like it. Marsh specializes in making murders look like accidents, suicides, or natural causes. He's expensive, careful, and has never been successfully prosecuted. So we stop him. Sarah shook her head. If we move now, Marsh disappears and Daniel claims ignorance. We need concrete evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. That means letting them move forward. I finished, understanding the brutal logic. Using me as bait. With full protection, Martin assured me. We'll be on you constantly. The moment Marsh makes any aggressive move, we intervene. But ideally, we document the attempt, trace the payment from Daniel, and build an airtight case. And if something goes wrong? If Marsh is better than your team? Martin's expression was stone. He's not. I've reviewed his previous work. He's good, but he relies on victims being truly unsuspecting. You're not. Plus, he has patterns, preferences. He likes accidents that can be attributed to victim error. Wrong medication doses, faulty equipment that was user mistake, that sort of thing. So I need to appear vulnerable to those specific scenarios. While actually being completely protected, yes. I thought about it, weighing risk against reward. Running would mean abandoning everything I'd built, living in fear, fighting back. Through lawyers would drag on for years with uncertain outcomes. But this, turning Daniel's plan against him, offered real resolution. Do it. What's our timeline? Based on the Costa Rica flight and your proposed spa trip next week, we estimate he'll move within the next 7 days. Probably something that appears stress-related given your recent behavior changes. Heart attack, stroke, accidental overdose of anxiety medication. I don't take anxiety medication. Your husband picked up a prescription yesterday. Forged your signature at a clinic you've never visited. He's establishing a paper trail of mental health concerns. The thoroughness of his betrayal still managed to shock me. Every detail planned, every base covered. Except for one thing, he still believed I was the woman he'd married, not the survivor I'd become. What do you need me to do? Sarah pulled out a small device. Wear this at all times. It monitors your vitals and location constantly. Any distress, unusual readings, or separation from your phone triggers immediate response. Also, Martin added, document everything. Every conversation with Daniel, every unusual occurrence, every instinct that something's wrong. Build your own evidence file. If this goes to trial, your testimony backed by contemporaneous notes will be crucial. Where's Daniel now? Office. In meetings until noon, then lunch with investors. Normal Friday schedule. We've got eyes on him. I nodded, processing everything. In the next week, my husband would try to kill me. I'd need to let him get close enough to attempt it but not succeed, all while maintaining the facade of a stressed but loving wife. There's one more thing, Sarah said quietly. We found something in Daniel's history. 3 years ago, there was another woman, Patricia Chen, a junior partner at a competing firm he was trying to acquire. My stomach dropped. What happened to her? Car accident. Brake failure on a winding road. She'd been resisting the acquisition, had information that could have damaged Daniel's reputation. After her death, her partners sold to Blackwood Financial at a significant discount 3 years ago. When Daniel had been so stressed about the Chen acquisition, coming home late, drinking more than usual, I'd comforted him through what I thought was business pressure. Had I been comforting a murderer? Was it ever investigated? Briefly. But her car had a history of maintenance issues, and she'd been working long hours. Classic accident profile. Case closed. So I wasn't his first. The thought should have terrified me more, but instead, it crystallized my resolve. Daniel wasn't just a husband planning to murder his wife for money and a younger woman. He was a Serial killer who used corporate machinations as cover. How many other deaths had been disguised as accidents? How many families had mourned losses that were actually murders? I want everything on Patricia Chen, I said firmly. And any other suspicious deaths connected to our business dealings. If we're building a case, let's build a complete one. Martin nodded approvingly. Already in progress. Ms. Chen's family never believed it was an accident. They'll be very interested to learn about current developments. The drive back to the city gave me time to process everything. My life had become a careful performance where one wrong word, one suspicious action, could accelerate Daniel's timeline or make him abort entirely. Neither outcome was acceptable. I needed him to commit, to reveal himself fully, to create evidence, so damning that no expensive lawyer could explain it away. My phone rang. Daniel. Hi, darling, I answered, injecting warmth into my voice, just checking in. How was the security review? Thorough. Martin's implementing new keycard protocols and camera upgrades. Very technical and slightly paranoid, but I suppose that's what we pay him for. Good. Better safe than sorry. Listen, I might be late tonight. The investor lunch is running long. Lie. The investors were scheduled until 2:30, and it was already 2:45. No problem. I'll save you some dinner. You're an angel. I love you, Ellie. Love you too. The words tasted like ash. How many times had he said those words while planning my death? How many times had I believed them? At the office, Jennifer greeted me with barely concealed concern. Madison Hayes cleared out her desk this morning. Left her keycard and laptop. No forwarding address. Good riddance. I kept my voice professionally cold. Has legal finished their review? Preliminary findings suggest significant improprieties. They're recommending a full forensic audit of her transactions. Do it. And Jennifer? I want daily reports on any unusual activity in any department, no matter how small. She nodded, making notes. The board members have all confirmed for Monday's meeting. Mr. Blackwood's office asked for an agenda, but I told them you were still finalizing it. Smart girl. Keep it that way. This meeting needs to pack some surprises. The rest of the afternoon was routine business mixed with survival planning. Every normal task, reviewing portfolios, approving transactions, managing staff, was performed while part of my mind stayed alert for threats. Was the new temp from the agency Daniel had recommended actually a temp? Did the coffee taste different? Or was paranoia making me imagine things? When maintenance knocked to check the air conditioning I hadn't reported as broken, were they really maintenance? By the time I left the office at 6, exhaustion weighed on me like a physical force. Performing normalcy while expecting death at any moment was depleting in ways I hadn't anticipated. But I had to maintain the facade, especially tonight. Daniel would be watching for cracks, signs that his plan was working, or that I suspected. The Italian restaurant was crowded, forcing me to wait for our order. I used the time to observe, noting faces, checking for anyone who might be following. Sarah's team was invisible but present. I'd learned to spot the subtle signs of their protection. A woman reading a book who never turned pages. A man whose coffee cup never quite reached his lips. Small tells that meant I wasn't alone. At home, I found Daniel already there, changed into casual clothes and opening wine. Perfect timing, he smiled. I was just about to call and see if you needed help carrying dinner. You're home early. I thought the investors were keeping you. Wrapped up sooner than expected. Hungry? We ate at the kitchen counter, sharing. Food and wine like we had in our early days. Daniel seemed relaxed, affectionate even, asking about my day and sharing amusing stories from his lunch. If I hadn't known the truth, I would have thought we were healing whatever minor rift had formed. Instead, I recognized the performance of a man ensuring his victim felt secure. You seem better tonight, he observed, refilling my wine glass. Less stressed than yesterday. Martin's security measures helped. I know it seems paranoid, but having protocols in place makes me feel more in control. Control's important to you. Isn't it to everyone? I met his gaze directly. Especially when you've built something worth protecting. He raised his glass. To protection. I clinked glasses, but only pretended to sip. To knowing who you can trust. If the irony registered, he didn't show it. We finished dinner with more small talk, then cleaned up together in comfortable synchronization. 22 years of practice made us efficient partners in mundane tasks. I wondered if he felt any nostalgia for what we'd been, or if Madison had erased all sentiment. Movie, he suggested as we finished. That new thriller you wanted to see is on demand. A thriller about a woman who discovers her perfect life is a lie. The universe had a dark sense of humor. Sure. We settled on the couch, Daniel's arm around me as the movie played. I felt his breathing, steady and calm, while my own heart raced every time he shifted position. Was this how it would happen? A sudden attack during a quiet evening at home? But the movie ended without incident, Daniel yawning and suggesting an early night. You take the bed, I said. I'll stay up for a bit, maybe read. Still not feeling. Well, just restless. You know how I get when there's too much on my mind. He kissed my forehead and I managed not to flinch. Don't stay up too late. Tomorrow's Saturday, we should do something fun. Maybe drive out to the vineyard? Another isolated location. Maybe. Let's see how we feel in the morning. After he went upstairs, I sat in the dark living room, my book unopened. Somewhere out there, Vincent Marsh was planning my death. Madison Hayes was packing for Costa Rica. Patricia Chen's family was living with unanswered questions. And upstairs, my husband was sleeping peacefully, dreaming of a future that didn't include me. The game was accelerating, pieces moving into position for the final confrontation. I'd survived day one of knowing the truth. Now I had to survive long enough to expose it. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Marsh booked a rental car. Industrial cleaning supplies purchased. Timeline suggests this weekend. This weekend. Tomorrow or Sunday. Someone would try to kill me. I typed back. Understood. Ready. But was I? Could anyone really be ready to face their own murder? I stood, checking locks that Sarah's team had already secured, activating alarms that were redundant to their surveillance. These normal protective acts felt like ritual now, tiny rebellions against the fate Daniel had planned for me. Tomorrow I'd wake up and continue the charade. Sunday might bring the attempt on my life. Monday's board meeting would either be my triumph or my memorial. The timeline was compressed, urgent, terrifying, but I was still alive, still fighting. Still one step ahead of the man who'd vowed to love and cherish me until death do us part. He just hadn't expected me to have a say in whose death that would be. Saturday morning arrived with deceptive tranquility. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom windows. Birds sang in the garden, and the smell of fresh coffee drifted up from the kitchen. If not for the small monitoring device hidden beneath my pajamas and the knowledge that a professional killer was preparing my death, it might have been any lazy weekend morning from the past 2 decades. Daniel was already downstairs when I descended, wearing his weekend casual wear, khakis and a polo that emphasized the tennis physique he maintained religiously. He looked up from his tablet with a smile that would have seemed genuine to anyone who didn't know about midnight meetings with Vincent Marsh. Morning, beautiful. I made your favorite blueberry pancakes. The domesticity of it was surreal. My would-be murderer flipping pancakes like a devoted husband. Smells wonderful. Special occasion? Can't a man make breakfast for his wife without ulterior motives? He plated the pancakes with practiced ease, adding fresh berries and a dollop of whipped cream. Besides, I thought we could use a nice start to the weekend. You've been so stressed lately. I accepted the plate, checking subtly for any unusual coloring or smell. Poison seemed unlikely, too traceable, too obvious for someone who'd hired a specialist in accidental death. Still, I ate carefully, small bites that I could stop immediately if anything seemed wrong. The vineyard idea? I ventured between bites. Are we still thinking about that? Daniel settled across from me with his own plate. Actually, I was thinking we could stay local today. Maybe visit the farmer's market? You always enjoy that. Then, dinner at home. I'll cook. Interesting. Keeping me close, controllable. The farmer's market was public but crowded, full of opportunities for a skilled operative. And dinner at home gave him complete control over the environment. Sounds perfect, I agreed. Though I do need to stop by the office briefly, just to grab some files for Monday's meeting. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. On a Saturday? You know me. Can't help myself when there's a presentation to perfect. It'll take 30 minutes, tops. I could come with you, keep you company. Don't be silly. Enjoy your Saturday morning. I'll be back before you finish the crossword. We negotiated our day like chess players, each move calculated, each concession strategic. He wanted me controlled and isolated. I needed witnesses and documentation. Eventually, we compromised. I'd go to the office but be back by noon for our market visit. Sarah's voice crackled through my earpiece the moment I got in the car. Marsh is mobile. White van, commercial plates. He's been to your office building. Twice this week, likely studying patterns. Daniel seemed reluctant to let me go alone. He's probably worried about timeline. Marsh needs specific conditions for his style of accident. Your unpredictability is complicating things. At the office, security waved me through with familiar efficiency, but I noticed new faces among the weekend skeleton crew, Sarah's people, integrated seamlessly. The executive floor was nearly empty, just how I needed it. In my office, I activated the secure recording system and began documenting everything. The phone call that started this nightmare, Daniel's behavior changes, the evidence we'd gathered. I spoke for nearly an hour, creating a testimonial that would stand even if I didn't. If something happens to me, I concluded, staring directly at the hidden camera, investigate my husband, Daniel Blackwood. This was not an accident. This was murder. Jennifer appeared in my doorway as I finished, even though she wasn't supposed to be working weekends. Mrs. Blackwood, I saw your car and thought, is everything all right? Her concern seemed genuine. Jennifer had been with us 8 years, smart and observant. Could I trust her? Should I warn her? Jennifer, what are you doing here on a Saturday? Preparing for Monday's board meeting. I wanted everything perfect. She hesitated. Also, after the Madison situation, I've been reviewing past transactions. I found some irregularities I thought you should see. She handed me a folder. Inside were transaction records I hadn't seen before, patterns of money movement that suggested systematic embezzlement, all traced back to accounts Daniel controlled. How long has this been going on? At least 3 years, possibly longer. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but it adds up to nearly $2 million. Mrs. Blackwood, I think Mr. Blackwood has been... I know. The words came out before I could stop them. Jennifer, I need you to listen very carefully. Make copies of everything. Store them somewhere safe, off-site. If anything happens to me... Nothing's going to happen to you, she interrupted, her face pale. We should call the police. With what? Financial irregularities he'll claim were authorized? No, we need more evidence. But I need to know you're... safe. Take the rest of the weekend off. Leave town if you can. Visit family. Her eyes widened. Mrs. Blackwood, you're scaring me. Good. Scared is safe right now. Monday's board meeting is going to change everything. But we have to get there. First, promise me you'll leave the city. She nodded slowly. My sister's in Boston. I could visit her? Perfect. Go now. Don't tell anyone where you're going. After Jennifer left, I gathered the new evidence and locked it in my private safe. $2 million over 3 years. Not enough to kill for, unless it was part of something bigger. Or unless Patricia Chen had discovered it and threatened exposure. My phone buzzed. Daniel. Everything all right? You've been gone over an hour. Sorry, darling. Got caught up in some files. Heading home now. Drive carefully. The market closes at 2. Always the concerned husband. I wondered if he'd use that same tone when he identified my body. Poor Ellie, he'd say. She always did push herself too hard. The drive home was uneventful, though I noticed a white van 3 cars back that maintained perfect following distance. Sarah's voice confirmed my suspicion. Marsh is tracking you. We're tracking him. Stay calm. At home, Daniel waited on the front steps, car keys in hand. Ready? I thought we'd take the BMW today. The Tesla's making a funny noise. My car, making a funny noise he'd never mentioned before. When did that start? Yesterday, I think. I'll have it looked at Monday. Or sooner, after the brake lines failed or the steering locked up on a dangerous curve. Good idea. The BMW's fine. The farmers' market bustled with Saturday shoppers, families enjoying the autumn weather, vendors hawking everything from organic produce to handmade soaps. Daniel kept his hand on my lower back, guiding me through the crowds with what would look like protectiveness, but felt like control. Ellie! Daniel! A familiar voice called out. Susan Walker approached with a basket of sunflowers. Twice in 1 week, how lovely. Daniel's smile tightened, but he played along with the social nicety. Susan's unexpected presence clearly wasn't part of his plan. Join us for coffee? Susan suggested. Paul's grabbing a table at that cute cafe on the corner. We couldn't impose, Daniel started, but I cut him off. We'd love to, wouldn't we, darling? For the next hour, we sat with the Walkers discussing everything from Paul's sailing adventures to Susan's charity work. Normal conversation that felt surreal given the circumstances. Throughout it all, I felt Daniel's growing tension, saw him check his phone repeatedly, noticed his jaw clench when Paul suggested we all have dinner together soon. Actually, Daniel said as we finished our coffees, Ellie hasn't been feeling well. We should probably head home. Susan immediately turned concerned eyes on me. You do look a bit pale. Are you taking care of yourself? Just work stress, I assured her while mentally noting Daniel's improvisation. Was I about to feel suddenly ill? But Daniel's right. We should go. The walk back to the car felt like a funeral march. Daniel's hand on my back was firm now, steering me away from other shoppers, isolating me in the crowd. My earpiece crackled. Marsh is at your house, entered through the pool house 10 minutes ago. So this was it. The accident was waiting at home, prepared while we were conveniently absent. My heart hammered, but I kept my expression neutral, playing the tired wife being led home by her caring husband. I was thinking salmon for dinner, Daniel said as we drove. With that dill sauce you like. Sounds wonderful. Would I live to see dinner? Though I might need a nap first. That coffee didn't help my headache. Of course. Whatever you need. The house looked exactly as we'd left it. Nothing ominous, no signs of intrusion. But I knew Vincent Marsh had been here, preparing something that would look like my own fault, my own carelessness. Why don't you go lie down? Daniel suggested as we entered. I'll put away the market purchases. In a minute. I need some water first. I moved toward the kitchen, hyper-aware of every step, every surface, every potential threat. The marble floor that could be slicked with something invisible, the stairs I could be pushed down, the chandelier that could fall, 100 ways to die in my own home. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Gas leak in master bedroom. Do not enter. We're monitoring. Gas. Odorless, deadly, and easily explained as a tragic accident. Old house, aging pipes, a woman already suffering from headaches who lay down for a nap and never woke up. Daniel would return from an errand to find his wife dead, overcome by fumes. How devastated he'd appear. Actually, I said, turning back. To Daniel, I think I'll use the guest room again. The master bedroom gets too much afternoon sun. Something flickered in his eyes. The guest room? But I just put fresh sheets on our bed. I know, but I sleep better in the smaller space when… I have a headache, you understand. We stood facing each other in our grand foyer, the space between us crackling with unspoken knowledge. He knew I was being difficult. I knew he was hurting me toward death. Neither of us acknowledged the game. Of course, he said finally. Whatever helps you feel better. I climbed the stairs slowly, gripping the rail, testing each step. At the guest room door, I paused. Had Marsh prepared a backup plan? Secondary location? Sarah's voice came through. Guest room clear. Lock the door. Team moving in. Inside the, safety of the guest room, I twisted the lock and leaned against the door, legs suddenly shaky. I'd just avoided death by minutes, maybe seconds. Somewhere in my beautiful home, a professional killer's trap waited for a victim who wouldn't come. My phone lit up with a text from Daniel. Running to the store for dinner ingredients. Rest well. Love you. Leaving the scene. Establishing alibi. When he returned, he'd expect to find tragedy. Instead, he'd find disappointment. I moved to the window, watching his BMW disappear down our tree-lined street. Within moments, unmarked vans appeared. Sarah's team, moving fast now that Daniel was gone. I watched them work with military precision, documenting everything, gathering evidence, making the house safe again. A knock at my door made me jump. Mrs. Blackwood, it's Martin. Scene is secure. I unlocked the door to find my security chief looking grimmer than I'd ever seen him. How bad? Professional job. Gas line compromised but made to look like natural wear. You would have been unconscious in minutes, dead within 10. Fire department will confirm it was tampered with when they investigate your accident. Evidence? All. Documented. Video of Marsh entering, photos of the tampering, chemical analysis that will prove it wasn't natural deterioration. Combined with the paper trail, it's enough. So we call the police now? Martin shook his head. He'll have alibis, explanations. Marsh is gone, probably already being paid and disappearing. We need Daniel to think it worked. We need him overconfident. You want me to play dead? Not quite. But imagine how he'd react if you had a close call. If you were found unconscious but alive, hospitalized, critical condition, he'd have to play the concerned husband while figuring out why his plan failed. I thought about it. The hospital would be controlled, secure. Daniel would have to perform grief and worry while scrambling to adjust his plans. And every move he made would be documented. Do it. The next hour was controlled chaos. EMTs who were actually Sarah's people arrived with sirens blazing. Neighbors gathered to watch as I was carried out on a stretcher, oxygen mask in place. I kept my eyes closed but heard the gasps, the murmurs of concern. Word would spread quickly. Poor Eleanor Blackwood, found unconscious in her home, some kind of gas leak, touch and go. In the ambulance, Sarah briefed me rapidly. You'll be in a private room, secure wing. Real medical staff who've been briefed on the situation. Daniel's about 15 minutes out. He'll get the call any moment. What's my condition? Critical, but stable. Unconscious. Potential brain damage. From oxygen deprivation. The doctors will be vague, concerned. It'll drive him crazy not knowing if his plan succeeded or failed. At the hospital, I was whisked into a private room where Dr. Patel, the chief of staff, waited. Mrs. Blackwood, I want you to know that your safety is our absolute priority. Only cleared personnel will have access to you. How long do I have to pretend? Let's see how your husband reacts first, but I'd estimate 24 to 48 hours. Long enough to document his behavior and force his next move. They attached monitors that would show concerning but not fatal readings. An oxygen mask obscured most of my face. To anyone looking, I was a woman fighting for her life after a tragic accident. Daniel arrived 40 minutes later. I heard his voice in the hallway, perfect pitch of desperation and fear. "Where is she? Where's my wife? I got a call. They said gas leak. Is she?" Dr. Patel's calm response. "Mr. Blackwood, your wife is alive but critical. She was exposed to high levels of gas. We're doing everything we can. Can I see her?" "Of course. But please understand, she's unconscious. We don't know when or if she'll wake up. When or if." The words Daniel had been hoping to hear, delivered as devastating news. I kept my breathing shallow, my body still, as footsteps approached my bed. "Oh, Ellie." Daniel's voice cracked with emotion that might have fooled anyone who hadn't heard him planning my death. His hand found mine, squeezed gently. "I'm so sorry. I should have been there." "Yes, you should have been. To make sure your plan worked, Chair scraped as he sat beside my bed. For the next hour, he played the devoted husband perfectly, holding my hand, whispering apologies and endearments, even crying softly. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't known the truth, I'd have been moved by his apparent grief. "Mr. Blackwood." A nurse entered. One of Sarah's team. I recognized the voice. "There's some paperwork we need you to complete, and the police have some questions about your home's gas lines." "Police?" Just a hint of concern beneath the grief. "Standard procedure with gas leaks. They need to determine if it was negligence by the gas company or a maintenance issue." "Of course. Whatever helps. I can't lose her." After he left, I cracked one eye open. Sarah stood by the window in scrubs, looking like any other nurse. "He's rattled, trying to reach Marsh, but the number's disconnected. He's already called his lawyer. And Madison? Flight to Costa Rica postponed. She's spooked by your accident, probably wondering if she's next." Smart girl. Though not smart enough to avoid Daniel in the first place. The afternoon passed in medical theater. Doctors came and went, discussing my condition in hushed tones whenever Daniel was present. He maintained his vigil, the perfect image of a distraught husband. But I caught the moments when he thought no one was looking. The calculation in his eyes, the frustrated set of his jaw, the constant checking of his phone. Susan and Paul Walker arrived around 4, flowers in hand. "Oh, Daniel, we just heard. How is she?" I listened to him retell the story he'd crafted. Coming home from errands to find the house filled with gas, Ellie unconscious in the guest room. A fortunate change from the master bedroom, he noted, or it might have been worse. His desperate call to 911, the terrifying ride to the hospital. "The doctors aren't sure," he concluded, voice breaking. "There might be brain damage." Susan gasped. Paul gripped Daniel's shoulder in manly support. They stayed another 20 minutes, promising prayers and support, being the good friends they'd always been. Their presence clearly frustrated Daniel, but he couldn't send them away without seeming callous. After they left, he sat beside me again. This time, when he took my hand, his grip was firmer. Testing? Hoping for a response that wouldn't come? "The guest room. Ellie," he murmured so softly, I almost missed it. "Why the guest room? You were supposed to be in our room." There it was. The crack in his facade, speaking to his unconscious wife about the failed murder plan. I remained still, breathing steady, giving him nothing. His phone buzzed. He answered quickly, moving to the corner of the room. "Yes? No, she's still unconscious." "The doctors don't—" "What do you mean he's gone? Find him." Marsh disappeared with his payment, job incomplete. Daniel's perfect plan unraveling thread by thread. Dr. Patel returned as Daniel hung up. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to discuss your wife's condition. Perhaps we could speak in my office." "I don't want to leave her. It's important." And I promise she's stable for now. Reluctantly, Daniel followed him out. The moment the door closed, Sarah was beside me. Police found evidence at your house. Clear tampering. They'll be interviewing Daniel soon, but he'll stick to his story. Devoted husband. No idea how this happened. Probably the gas company's fault. How long do I stay unconscious? Until he makes his next move. He's already looking at medical power of attorney documents on his phone. If you're brain damaged, he'll need to make decisions for you. Like whether to continue life support. The cold calculation of it stole my breath. First attempt failed? Try the hospital. Grief-stricken husband forced to make the impossible choice to let his wife go. He'd cry, he'd agonize publicly, then he'd authorize the removal of life support and walk away with everything. He won't get that far, Sarah assured me. But we need him to try. Every document he signs, every call he makes, builds the case. Evening fell. Daniel maintained his bedside vigil, though I could feel his impatience growing. Nurses came regularly to check my vitals, adjust monitors, maintain the illusion. During shift change, Daniel stepped out for coffee. I opened my eyes fully. For the first time in hours. The room was dim, monitors beeping steadily. Through the window, city lights twinkled. Somewhere out there, Madison Hayes was probably packing frantically. Vincent Marsh had vanished with his blood money, and Patricia Chen's family was about to get justice they'd never expected. Mrs. Blackwood? Martin's voice from the doorway. We've been monitoring all communications. Your husband's been busy. He's already reached out to 3 other specialists like Marsh. He's also moving money, trying to hide the payments to Marsh before investigators find them. And the board. Meeting? Jennifer sent the notifications from Boston as instructed. All board members confirmed. Daniel tried to postpone given your condition, but since you called the emergency meeting, only you can cancel it. Perfect. He'd have to attend. Have to face questions about restructuring while his wife lay supposedly comatose. The pressure would be enormous. A commotion in the hallway. Daniel's voice agitated. I don't care about visiting hours, that's my wife. Sir, please calm down. Security, firm but professional. The doctors have restricted access for her safety. Her safety? She's unconscious. What possible... Mr. Blackwood. Dr. Patel's authoritative voice cut through. Your wife's condition is precarious. Any disruption could be dangerous. Please, let us do our job. I closed my eyes as footsteps approached. Through slitted lids, I saw Daniel re-enter with Dr. Patel. My husband's face was flushed, his control slipping. I apologize, Dr. Patel said smoothly. But we've had to implement strict protocols. The police investigation into the gas leak has raised some concerns. What kind of concerns? Dangerous territory now. They're suggesting the damage to the gas line wasn't natural wear. They're investigating it as potential tampering. Daniel's hand stilled on mine. Tampering? That's... Who would want to hurt Ellie? That's what they're trying to determine. They'll want to interview you again tomorrow. In the meantime, we're keeping Mrs. Blackwood under protective watch. Protective? You think someone tried to kill my wife? The shock in his voice was masterful. If I were a jury, I might believe him. We're taking no chances, Dr. Patel said firmly. Now, visiting hours are ending. You can return in the morning. I'm not leaving her. I'm afraid you have no choice. Hospital policy when there's an active police investigation. Security will escort you out. I felt Daniel lean close, his lips near my ear. I'll fix this, Ellie. I promise. Everything will be all right. The threat disguised as comfort chilled me more than any overt violence would have. After he left, I sat up fully, pulling off the oxygen mask. He's going to escalate. Dr. Patel nodded grimly. We've prepared for that. Your room is now under 24/7 guard. No one gets in without proper authorization. And Daniel? Will be watched every moment. We have people on him, his communications monitored, his movements tracked. When he makes his next move, And he will. We'll be ready. I lay back against the pillows, exhausted by the performance and the constant fear. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Daniel would adapt, try new approaches. Madison might run or might become a liability he needed to eliminate. The board meeting loomed, a corporate showdown he couldn't avoid. Try to actually rest, Dr. Patel advised. Tomorrow will be intense. As the room settled into quiet, I thought about the path that had led here, the signs I'd missed or ignored over the years, the gradual erosion of the man I'd married into someone capable of murder. Or had he always been this way, and love had blinded me? My phone, hidden in the bedside table, buzzed with a message. Martin. All Daniel's accounts frozen by federal order. He'll discover it in the morning. Be ready for desperation moves. Frozen accounts. No access to the fortune he'd killed for, no money to run, to hire more specialists, to pay off Madison. Cornered animals were the most dangerous, but they also made mistakes. I closed my eyes, not to perform unconsciousness, but to actually rest. Tomorrow, the husband who'd plotted my death would discover his carefully laid plans in ruins. His money gone, his freedom threatened, his perfect murder failed. The game was entering its final phase, and I intended to win. But first, I had to survive the night. The monitors beeped steadily, marking time in this strange purgatory between life and death, between victim and victor. Somewhere in the city, Daniel was probably pacing his hotel room. He wouldn't dare return to our gas-tainted house, planning his next move. Let him plan. I had moves of my own to make. Sunday morning brought Daniel's final desperate gambit. He arrived at the hospital with legal documents, medical power of attorney, DNR orders, papers that would give him control over my life support. But he found federal agents waiting in my room. Mr. Blackwood, Agent Rodriguez said, badge gleaming. We need to discuss Vincent Marsh, Patricia Chen, and your recent financial transactions. I sat up in bed, very much conscious, watching the color drain from my husband's face. Ellie? His voice cracked. How disappointed, Daniel? Were you hoping I'd stay unconscious long enough for you to pull the plug? I gestured to the agents. They've been very interested in the recording I made of your phone call. The one where you discussed making my accident look natural. The documents fell from his nerveless fingers. I want a lawyer. You'll need one, Agent Rodriguez confirmed. Daniel Blackwood, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, and the murder of Patricia Chen. As they cuffed him, Daniel's mask finally shattered completely. You set me up. This whole thing, you knew. I knew the moment I heard you planning my death. But unlike you, I didn't hire a killer. I hired protection. I gathered evidence. I let you hang yourself with your own rope. They led him away, but not before he turned back one last time. The prenup. The one you insisted on? Yes, it's quite clear. Attempted murder voids all claims. The company remains mine, as does everything else. Madison Hayes was arrested at the airport, her Costa Rica dreams ending in federal custody. She flipped immediately, providing detailed testimony about Daniel's promises, the affair, and her insider trading at his direction. Vincent Marsh was captured 3 states away, the $50,000 in cash still in his possession. Faced with evidence of his tampering, he too made a deal, confirming Daniel as the man who'd hired him. The board meeting proceeded Monday as scheduled. I walked in to shocked faces and genuine applause. Jennifer had returned from Boston to present the financial evidence she'd uncovered. By unanimous vote, Daniel's name was stripped from the company he'd tried to steal through murder, Patricia. Chen's family finally got their answers. Her accident was reclassified as homicide, giving them the closure they'd sought for 3 years. 6 months later, I sat in my office, now fully mine, reviewing the quarterly reports. Blackwood Financial had not only survived but thrived. The publicity around the case had actually strengthened our reputation as a firm that valued integrity over everything. The Walkers remained friends, Susan often joining me for lunch, both of us adjusting to my new reality as a widow of sorts. Daniel's trial was ongoing, but his conviction seemed certain given the mountain of evidence. The morning sun streamed through my office windows, illuminating a future that had almost been stolen from me. I'd lost a husband, but saved a life, my own. And that was a trade I could live with. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them. Out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.